Ma'am, there is a sharing option given, na? You can go through it.
Meeting details. 1 minute.
Start,
At
ma'am.
the bottom there is a start हो गया.
Ma'am, you can do it. Later on, we will start.
Present now. Your entire present में करना है क्या? My daughters are not there.
Start, ma'am.
Your
Start. It is starting. Okay. Yes.
Ma'am, we'll do it later.
हाँ, Meenakshi, please start.
Okay. A pleasant good evening to one and all. It is said, there's nothing that cheers a person than a hearty greeting, a hand clasp, and an honest smile that flashes the joy of meeting. And when at friendly doors you ring, somehow it seems to free you from all life's doubts to hear them say, "Come in, we are glad to see you." Similarly, with this optimistic note, I, Dr. Meenakshi Vasnik, feel the privilege to welcome our respected learner delegates, eminent scholars, distinguished participants, and all the members of Shakespearean Society who are excited to be here on second day of the certificate course on Shakespearean Studies organized under the aegis of iSPELL, Indian Society for the Promotion of English Language and Literature, Vidarbha Forum on Shakespearean Society of Central India. Shakespeare's representation of women and the ways in which his roles are interpreted and enacted have become a topic of scholarly interest. Shakespeare's understanding about his female characters can be referred from his quotes, "From women's eyes, this doctrine I derive. They sparkle still the right Promethean fire. They are the books, the arts, the academics that show, contain, and nourish all the world," unquote. Thus, to take us in the literary voyage of Shakespeare's woman character, today we have with us a very generous personality and an erudite academician, Dr. Deepti Jain Thackeray, Madam. I heartily welcome you, ma'am, in today's session. I also feel proud to introduce before you to Dr. Deepti Jain Thackeray, Madam, who is working as an associate professor in Anjuman Degree College of Arts, Nagpur. Madam is a coordinator of NAC of her college and actively involved in various programs undertaken for the development of the students. She has to her credit many creative and literary research articles presented and published in national and international journals of repute. She is an ardent poetess too. She is an executive member of CLIC and Shakespearean Society of Central India and is actively involved in various programs conducted by them. Today, Dr. Deepti Jain, Madam, will deliver her scholarly discourse on the very fascinating topic, the role of women characters in Shakespearean tragedy, a feminist study. I feel immense pleasure to invite Dr. Deepti Jain Thackeray, Madam, to begin her scholarly presentation. Over to Dr. Deepti Jain, Madam.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Meenakshi, ma'am.
Thank
Now, good evening, everyone. Now, first of all, I would like everyone to wish a very happy Guru Purnima, because I can see there are some mentors out there. Now, and before I start, I would like to congratulate iSPELL India and Vidarbha Forum and Shakespeare Society of Central India to come up with this national online certificate course on Shakespearean studies. And would like also to thank Dr. Pranoti Chakravarti ma'am, who's the founder and president of Shakespeare Society of Central India, who has always been my friend, philosopher and guide and believed in me. And would like to acknowledge Professor G.A. Ghanshyam, founder and general secretary, iSPELL. Thanks to Dr. Jyoti Patil ma'am, who's president iSPELL Vidarbha Forum, and Dr. Usha Sakure for your encouragement and for giving me this opportunity and placing me among such erudite speakers. Now, this is my first attempt in this regular series of Shakespearean certificate course, and I hope I meet your expectations. So, I'll be starting. Now, as ma'am has already told that my topic of today's discussion is the role of women characters in Shakespearean tragedy, and from a feministic point of view. Now let me start with my presentation, and then I'll continue. Okay, now is my screen visible?
No, Dipti.
No, madam.
Okay. I'm doing something wrong, I think. 1 minute.
Click share also. Click on the slide and click share.
Share. Yeah.
Open your PPT on the desktop, then let us share your screen, madam.
It's already open, and I am.
Yeah.
There's an option, na, start from the beginning.
Yeah.
You click it, you click it, then you'll be able to share it.
Should I share my entire screen or a window?
You can share your entire screen also, no issue.
Entire screen. Share. Is it visible?
No.
Oh, man.
If you are sharing your entire screen, you have to go to your PPT, click it, on it, and before that you have to share. One share button is there, blue share button. Okay, when you click the entire screen, below it there is a share.
It is at the bottom, Dipti.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
Did you get it?
1 minute.
Yes,
Yeah,
you are getting
working.
it.
Yeah, it is
Yeah,
working.
now it is there.
Yeah.
Now it is visible.
Yes.
Yeah, it is visible now. Okay.
Dipti, madam?
Yes.
Yeah, fine.
Dipti, it is visible. Yes,
Okay.
go ahead. All the rest.
So we'll be dealing with depiction of women in Shakespearean studies. That is a feministic study. Now, the four major tragedies that I'll be considering today is Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, and Macbeth. Now, before we move on to studying Shakespeare's tragedy, I think it's very important to know that what was the condition of women, the position of women during the Shakespearean time, that is the position during the 16th century England, right? Now, in Elizabethan times, women usually belonged to their fathers or their brothers if their father died. So, obviously, there is this objectification. They were used in an object. They belonged to somebody as if they did not have their individual entity, right? And after they got married, they belonged to their husbands. And then women could not own the property of their own. It was like they could inherit property, but then they could not actually buy property. And this is one of the reasons that Queen Elizabeth never married, as she did not want to give up her power to a man. And then 16th century England was a patriarchal society, and patriarchy was an accepted form of belief. It was a male dominated society where men were considered superior to women, and women had no right to vote or take part in politics and social issues, right? So obviously they could not vote. Voting actually, women got this right to vote in the 20th century, like very late. Then women were thus confined to the roles of childbearers, nurses, cooks, and homemakers. Now, these traditional roles were supported by laws, customs, and religious authority. Now, in addition to these legal restrictions, women were also bound by strict social expectations that did not apply equally to men. Now, there were certain things that which women were expected to do, and they were forced into doing, and which men could not. And then women were not allowed to attend schools or universities, which meant that they could not work in professions like law or medicines or any other professions to name. Now, most of the guilds which trained skilled workers like goldsmiths and carpenters did not officially admit women. Even the disreputable profession of acting was off limits to women. Like, again, acting, now we know that even in India, when the movies came into existence, like the women could not act in movies. It was usually considered like the women who were either prostitutes or woes or disreputable women, only they could act in movies. And so was the case in the 16th century England also. Like, women were not could not act. Like, that is the reason when we see Shakespeare, when most of the times it's men who played, young boys actually, who played the roles of women. And the only trades legally available to women were those that could be mastered and practiced in the home, such as hat making and brewing. So they were limited to only those professions which they could carry on from their homes. Now, sermons and books written during the Elizabethan era encouraged women to be silent and obedient to male authority, whether that of their father and husband. So whatever we have seen here, now this is what we'll be seeing in whatever, like, the dramas that we'll be considering, the four tragedies, the four major tragedies that I'm going to deal with today. Like, all these points, we'll find that these things which I have said now will somewhere or the other reflect on the characters, on the women characters, when we look at the plays. Now, again, we'll see, like, since the topic feminism, it's very vast and I want to limit it so that like, again, we are only studying women characters, and we'll be studying it only from the following points, that is how the women are treated. Now, the first and the foremost thing that we'll see, that is there marginalization of women characters in the play, in Shakespearean tragedies, these four tragedies. Do we find that women get enough scope, or are they marginalized? And then we'll see that, are the women treated as subordinates? Is there subordination on women characters? Then we'll see that, is there distortion on women characters? Are the women characters erased whenever Shakespeare found that they did not have any work to do, he just simply erased them? Is there objectification of women characters? Are they treated as object? That is what we'll go through in detail when we are considering these plays, that are the women treated as objects, and is there exploitation of women characters? So these are the 6 things which we will see when we are studying these plays. Okay, so first and the foremost, like the first, actually I have dealt with them chronologically. The first tragedy, Hamlet, was Hamlet. Okay, now for all those people out there who are new, who don't know about Shakespeare or his tragedies, so obviously they wouldn't know the story. So I've just, in short, I've included the outline of the story. Now, Hamlet, it's a story of a king of Denmark who is killed. So he comes in the form of ghost, and he tells his son that he has been killed by the new king, who is also his uncle, and he asks Hamlet to take revenge. Okay, now in that process, Hamlet feigns madness, he contemplates life and death, and then he seeks revenge. Now, obviously, Claudius comes to know that Hamlet is going to kill him. He has come to know about his murdering his father. So he, fearing for his life, he also devises plots to kill Hamlet. And obviously, at the end, we find that the stage is full of dead bodies, because there is this duel. Okay, and during which the king, the queen, then Hamlet, and all his opponents are all killed. So Prince Hamlet is also killed, as was his father Hamlet, right? Now, when we talk about female characters, there are only two female characters in the play, and they are Ophelia and Gertrude. Now, Ophelia, she is the beloved of Hamlet, and Gertrude, she is mother of Hamlet. Now, the play speaks volumes about the uniquely painful, difficult struggles and unfair fates women have suffered throughout history. Now, obviously, when we are doing it, when we read the play, we very often feel that since Ophelia or Gertrude, they belong to a noble family, so maybe they were more privileged than the other heroines which we find in Shakespeare's comedies. But then this was not the case. Actually, women of noble birth, they had to suffer more, and the women who belong to the middle class or the lower middle class or the poor families, whatever, they had more freedom than these women of noble birth. Right, so obviously, the play exposes the prejudices and disadvantages which narrowed or blocked off the choices available to the women, and to all women in general, and to women of noble birth. Now, the first and the foremost character that we are going to consider is Ophelia. Now, I have already told you that Ophelia is the beloved of Hamlet, right? And she is a good daughter of her father and a good sister of her brother. Now, when we talk about Ophelia and the role, now again, Ophelia is the heroine of the play, we can say. If Hamlet is the hero, Ophelia is his beloved, so obviously she is the heroine of the play. But then, as a heroine of the play, her role is not justified. She has been marginalized by Shakespeare, because out of the 20 scenes in the play, Ophelia appears only in 5 scenes. And as I told you, that she loved a Hamlet. So, like, her love story is like it's just narrated by her. Like in the pre-play course, we can say that her love story with Hamlet is known only by few ambiguous flashbacks, right? One minute, sorry. So there are just few flashback that we come to know that there were exchange of letters, and there were exchange of gifts between Ophelia and Hamlet. So it's not shown on the stage. And she is forced into taking several decisions and situations which don't seem to be her own making, but rather things she must simply do to appease the men around her. Now, I've already told you that Ophelia, she is the daughter of Polonius, and her brother is Laertes. Now, whatever Polonius and Laertes tells her to do, she does it without any questioning, because maybe she knows that if she doesn't listen to them, the outcome may not be good. So she just listened to them. So, and at the cost of her feeling or of her own feeling. Now, Laertes doesn't want her to have any connection with Hamlet. So once she's told that she should have no contacts with him, she should not meet him, she immediately stops meeting him, meeting Hamlet. And then we find that she is used as a pawn. She is used as a pawn because when Hamlet, he pretends to be mad, he feigns madness, and the king Claudius and Polonius, they want to know that what is the cause of madness, and somebody suggests that it's maybe because Ophelia has rejected his advances, she is not responding to his love right now, maybe that is why he's grown mad. So obviously she's used as a pawn, meaning that they want to confirm whether this is true or not. So they encourage her. They actually tells her that she should return all the gifts and all the letters to Hamlet, so that they are sure whether that is the reason that Hamlet has gone mad. Because once they are sure that Ophelia is the reason, that then they may reach to some solution. And if the reason of Hamlet is something else, so obviously then they'll have to act accordingly. So Ophelia that is how used as a pawn. Now, Ophelia is actually compared to a woodcock which cannot fend. So this we see that how the fathers and the brothers, they usually treated women. So Ophelia gets the same treatment as the women in the society at that time, a point of time, got. So Ophelia's father, he actually compares her to a woodcock, like who cannot fend, meaning she is a person who is dependent on them, who cannot exist in isolation. She'll either be dependent on her father or brother, and after her marriage, she'll be dependent on her husband. So this is what they felt. Now, Lee Edward, a critic, actually claims that we can imagine Hamlet's story without Ophelia, but Ophelia literally has no story without Hamlet, and this is in fact true, because once Hamlet, she rejects Hamlet's advances. He accuses her of faithlessness, of treachery, of hypocrisy, and of falsehood. And this is too much for Ophelia to bear. And in the meanwhile, her husband is also killed by Hamlet, and she is so heartbroken that she loses her sanity, and she just drowns herself. Now here a picture has been given that how she has drowned herself, and she is surrounded by flowers when she is drowning herself. So by this act of killing herself, we can actually say that she wants to take her fate into her own hands. Finally she wants to do it, and she knows that being alive, until like she won't be able to do it, she won't be able to act according to her own wishes. So the one thing she wants to do, like according to her own wish, and she does it, and that is taking her own life. And here I would also like to add, like she dies again, Ophelia dies, and that too not at the end, at the middle of the play that we find at the fourth act, she just dies. So it seems that Shakespeare felt that now Ophelia was of no use, because all the men, they have used her, and they have known that it's not because of Ophelia that Hamlet has turned into a madman, on lost his sanity. And obviously Shakespeare thought that now Ophelia is of no use, and he just eliminates her, right? And that is why Lee Edward, like we can actually imagine Hamlet's story without Ophelia. So being a heroine, she does not even stays there till the last scene. She is just eliminated, and we find that Hamlet, although he loves her, he has no, like he doesn't sympathizes with her, or when she refuses his advances, he doesn't even try to know the reason behind it. So he just leaves her to die. So this is what happens with Shakespeare's heroines, like how she has been marginalized, and she has been subordinated and used as an object. Now, as we move on to the next character, that is Gertrude. Now, Gertrude is the wife of Hamlet, the king, and she is portrayed as a negative stereotypes of a woman. Like again, why? Like it's a big question that why she is said to be a bad woman, or a faithless woman, or a disloyal woman, just because she got married to her like brother-in-law, and that too after her husband was killed. Like had this happened, like had some men done this, like had he married a woman after his wife's death, nobody would have told him to be faithless or disloyal. But then Gertrude is said that she is faithless, she is disloyal. And we find that Prince Hamlet, he actually shocked, like when he comes to know that her mother has married her uncle after his father's death. he is shocked, and he there's a beautiful soliloquy. Actually, I would like to read that soliloquy, which ends with frailty thy name is women. So Hamlet says, heaven and earth, must I remember why she would hang on him, as if increase of appetite had grown, but what it fed on, and yet within a month, let me not think on it. Frailty thy name is women. So he doesn't want even to think that his mother has remarried. And now there's one more aspect over here that he doesn't want to now. That is actually a psychoanalytical aspect, that he suffers from Oedipus complex. And that is why he could not bear that his mother has married his uncle. But then we'll not go into it here. We just want to say here that he doesn't like it, and that is why he says that frailty thy name is women, because he feels that as if his mother was his father's property, right? And once his father has died, she has got no right to remarry. But obviously this is not so. And her remarriage has even he even suspects her mother, like since she has remarried her uncle, he even suspects that maybe she has killed her own husband. Now obviously here there is one more, like he has no rights, because the thing is, with Gertrude, first her husband maybe before she was married her father possessed her. After she got married her husband possessed her, and now the condition of women is so such that even her son wants to possess her, in the sense he wants to dictate her life, and he wants to decide whether she could get married or not. And this is absolutely not done. And again, the thing which we would hear is that why did Gertrude get married? Now I can actually justify her act. Like she was a woman, and that too belonging to the 16th century, and now after her husband's death, maybe she now she had no power of her own, and maybe she was involved, maybe she was not, we don't know. It has not been clearly mentioned whether she was involved in her husband's killing or not. But then maybe she knew that Claudius has killed her husband. But still, had she not married, maybe she would have killed also, or maybe she would have been sent away or forced into another less appealing marital arrangement. So we can just say that in an effort to survive, Gertrude had married. Now, this is how we can justify her act, right? Although Hamlet wouldn't agree to it, but then the socio political situation, the condition at that time was thus that the women, widowed women, or a woman who was alone, could not survive. So that was the reason, right, that she got married. Now we move on to our next tragedy, that is Othello. Now Othello again is a tragedy, and the heroine Desdemona. Now when we compare Desdemona with Ophelia, there is a vast difference. Ophelia, we find, is a submissive heroine who is unable to take any decisions of her own, whereas Desdemona and Othello, we find, like at the beginning actually, we find that she is an assertive person, right? She does what she wants to. Now the story of Othello goes like this, that Desdemona, she chose to follow her passion and defied her father Brabantio to marry Othello, who is a Moor. So Desdemona's father Brabantio, he is against Desdemona's marriage to Othello. Now, Othello is a Moor, meaning a black Negro, we can say, right? So he doesn't want, Brabantio doesn't want his daughter to get married to Othello, but still she runs away, she elopes with him, and she marries him, right? And now this act of defying her father, like to get married. Now, this passion is used against her when the villainous Iago. Now, Iago we have already discussed yesterday. So, Panthasar has dealt with it in a very, very great way. Now, so Iago convinces her husband that she could lie. If she could lie to her father, she would lie to him as well. So obviously, she has been used for Iago's purpose. Now Iago is jealous. Now Iago, why he is jealous? Because Othello has not made him the lieutenant, and instead he has made Cassio the lieutenant. So obviously now Iago, he wants to take revenge, so he uses Desdemona, because obviously women could be used very easily at that point of time. Now he wrongfully accused of adultery. Nothing Desdemona does or says or does is enough to convince Othello of her faithfulness. So she tries, she tells him again and again, she tries to convince him that she is not she is faithful, but then he doesn't listen to her. It's only after her death that he comes to know about the truth, and but then it's too late. Now her boldness in choosing to define her father ultimately leads to her death at the hands of her jealous husband. So the only crime that we find that Desdemona has committed here is that she has married Othello. Otherwise, she is the best heroine that we could ever find in the history of, like, again, in like, she's brave, she's bold, she's intellectual, she's outgoing, she's passionate, she's sincere, like, uh, any good quality you name, and she is it. But again, the only thing she is not is that she has defied her father. She has been in love with Othello, and that is why she had to suffer. Now the two major women characters in Othello are Desdemona and Amelia. Now Desdemona, again, I've already told you that she is treated as an object. Now, in the beginning, Desdemona is part of Brabantio's possession. Now, his father possesses him. Now, Iago, actually, this is clear from Iago's remark. He says, like, see how he has situated her. Like, he says, your house, your daughter, and your bags. He has compared her with his house and his bags. So, he has put her in that category as if she is nothing else but an object. So she has been objectified in the play. Then she has been trivialized, marginalized, and dehumanized. Okay. As I've already told you, that her only fault was that she eloped with um, um, Othello, right? Now, Othello assigns his, like, how she's trivialized or she's dehumanized. Now, Othello assigns his wife to be taken to Cyprus by Iago, as if she's some cargo. So he asks Iago, now he's going to Cyprus, and he asks Iago to follow him. And he says, he also describes Desdemona as the purchase maid, that is in Act 2, Scene 3. So he says that, like, as if she is an object. She has no she's in life, she's a lifeless object, right? So and again, although she is a virtuous woman, her virtues are not praised, since it's a men world, because at the end we'll find that it's only Amelia who recognizes all her virtues and praises them for it. Otherwise, the men, Othello, Iago, even Cassio, for that purpose, he's also trying to use her. So she has been used, she has been dehumanized. And then Desdemona is even accused of being domineering, of rebelliousness, of disobedience, and of wantonness. And all this because she breaks the female moral codes repeatedly. And I've already told you that she is the boldest of the heroine. We can actually compare her with Lady Macbeth, but Lady Macbeth is her darker side. Desdemona and Lady Macbeth, we can say they are two opposites, but then there are certain things that they both share. Both of them are they are bold. They know how to keep bring forwards their thoughts, they speak. That is what is important. Okay, so since they speak their mind out, they are accused of being domineering, right? They are termed to be rebellious. They are said to be disobedient. And she, as I told you, that she breaks female moral codes, in the sense that how she got married we already know, like her clandestine marriage, right? Then she entertains Cassio without Othello's permission. And she talks to him, right? So that was not agreeable. Like that was against the code. That was against the law, we can say, of that point of time. And she also goes out of her house. Now see, there's one more thing that we'll observe. Like only two women we are seen goes out of the house. That is the three witches, which we'll be seeing in the last play, Macbeth and Desdemona. They are the they are the only ones whom we see that they are traveling, they are going out, they are talking to people. Otherwise, most, even Lady Macbeth, they are confined to their palaces or their houses. They are not even allowed to roam about. So that is why all this like they are all these accusations, right? Now even Othello, he regards his wife only in a stereotypical terms, like when she's good to him, or when that seed of doubt is not sown by Iago. According to Othello, she's an angel, a spiritual entity of love and goodness. And then when he doubts her credibility, when he feels that she is not truthful to him, then he publicly accuses her and uses the words such as subtle woe, chucks, trumpet, which are inherently sexist. And then he shifts, like in this way, he shifts from idealization of women to their degradation. So here we find that either the men, they just idealized the women, or they just degraded. So those were the two extreme things that men treated women with. Now again, what we Desdemona, when we see her at the beginning of the play, we find her very assertive. But then gradually, as we move ahead, we find that she becomes into a submissive being. She she considers herself as modest and inferior to men, and then she starts apologizing for her simpleness. And then she's so simple that uh, actually Simone de Beauvoir, for Desdemona, I want to quote the statement of Simone de Beauvoir, who says that women is nothing else than what the men decide. So once Othello has decided that she is now being unfaithful to him, now it was his decision. He does not even wants a proof or anything else, and nothing that Desdemona says or does is going to change his perception about her. So we, like, it actually holds true that women is nothing else than what the men decides, especially in this case. Okay, so now and again we find that when he is there, he is killing her. uh, uh, um, Desdemona doesn't even want to believe that he'll be able to do it, and he says, like when he's smothering her, she believes that she says, "Not yet to die." This is what she says, and then when Amelia comes to her and she's on the verge of death, so she says, "Let nobody blame him." So even when she is faultless, even when she is being murdered by because murdered by her husband, still she doesn't want anybody to blame him. So this is what Desdemona is portrayed by Shakespeare. And now when we move on to Amelia. Now Amelia is the wife of Othello's third in command, Iago, and Desdemona's personal maid, right? So now her affection is divided between her mistress and her husband. Now, again, Amelia is as an adjunct. Like, she is not given a very proper role to play. Like, she has been limited. Again, maybe Shakespeare didn't want another woman to play a major role, so he just made it to a minimal, right? So she is just treated as an adjunct, either like she is Desdemona's voice or Iago's voice, right? Now her affection is, as I said, divided between her mistress, that is Desdemona, and her husband. Now she is constantly disrespected by Iago, which parallels Desdemona's situation. So Desdemona is disrespected by Othello, and so also Amelia is disrespected by Iago very often. Now we can say that Amelia is the center of the tragedy. It was Amelia who, when asked by Iago, brings the handkerchief which belonged to Desdemona, and gives it to Iago. Iago then passes it to Cassio, and that is how the seed of suspicion is created, in the sense that Iago tells Othello that uh, it's Desdemona who loves Cassio, and she is the one who has given this handkerchief to him, right? So this is that is why we can say that it's Amelia's that trivial action of giving that handkerchief, passing on that handkerchief to Iago, that this tragedy happens. Now again, Amelia is not at all like, she doesn't know, like, what this action of her of giving the handkerchief will lead to. Had she known, she wouldn't have done it. But then again, she is a woman and she has to do it, because again her husband has commanded her to do. Now because of this, now when we see that how Iago treats Amelia, he calls her villainous boar, a good wench, and he even mocks at her by saying it's common thing to have a fool. So he calls her foolish, to have a foolish wife. And then again she's trivialized, subjugated, and marginalized by Iago, who only loves her for her physical company. And he says for her, you rise to play and you go to bed to work. So she these are the sexist comments which he passes on to Amelia. And it's at the end when we find that Amelia finally discloses to Othello, after Desdemona is being murdered by Othello, it's Amelia who tells him that she is the one who has given the handkerchief to Iago, and Iago was the mastermind of all these things. So obviously, as soon as she utters these words, Iago eliminates her, and he by brutally killing her. Right. So we um, this is what the fate of Amelia also. So Desdemona dies, and after her, Amelia also dies. Now here I would actually there is a willow scene in the play, a beautiful scene where Desdemona is sitting and she's very sad because the way Othello has been behaving with her lately. She doesn't know the reason that why he's acting so strangely. And Amelia, who in a way senses that it is something to do with he suspects Desdemona of something, of adultery or something. And Amelia, now here in a willow scene, we find that how she talks about the equality between man and women. Beautiful actually lines. That is why I wanted to include it. So when Desdemona actually says that she doubts if there exists a faithless woman, because see, we actually our perspective about things are the way we are. Like it's our own reflection. The things that we see around is our own reflection. If we are good, we'll see that the things around us are good, right? So she's a good lady, she's a faithful lady, like, so she doubts that there exist faithless women, and for that Amelia responds by saying, like, Amelia here, she wants to say that even if there's a faithless woman, it's all because of men. Men are to be blamed. It's not like if the women men, like here she wants to justify women's action, saying that if men can be unfaithful, so can women be, and if men will be faithful, then no women will be unfaithful. This is what she wants to say. So here she says, but I do think that it is the husband's fault. So she says if it's there's an unfaithful woman, then it's just because of the husband. So I'll say, she says, but I do think it is the husband's fault. If wives do fall, say that they can slack their duties and pour their treasures into foreign laps, or else break out into peevish jealousies, throwing restraint upon us, or say they strike us. I'll skip some lines, and she says, yet we have some revenge. So unfaithful women will be unfaithful just because she wants to revenge her husband. So she says, yet we have some revenge. Let husbands know. Their wives have sense like them. They see and smell, and have their palates both for sweet and sour, as husbands have. What is it that they do when they change us for others? Is it sport? I think it is. And doth affection breed it? I think it doth. Isn't frailty then that does us? Is it too? And have not we affections, desires for sports and frailty as men have? Then let them be as well, else let them know the ills we do, their ills instruct us. So beautiful line of how men and women should be treated equally. There should be no difference between men and women. That is what she wants to put forward. Now we move on to the next drama, that is King Lear. Now King Lear, he divides his kingdom into two among his two daughters. Now it's a story of a king who is a foolish king, actually, we can say. He doesn't have any sense of like, he doesn't know what is right, what is wrong. He cannot distinguish between the right and the wrong, and hence he divides his kingdom among the two daughters who flatter him. He asks his daughter, when he's uh, starting to divide his kingdom, he asks his daughters that who loves him most, and he has decided that whoever will tell that she loves him most, he'll give the biggest part to her. So that is why he says that. So his two daughters, who are flatterers, they tell him that they love him very much. Like, I would quote the first daughter, Cordelia, who says that I love you as a child ever loved her father, loved or father found, a love that makes breath poor and speech unable, beyond all manner, so much I love you. So she tells him that she loves him more than speech, breath, air, all those things. And then her second daughter, she also tells him that I love you, like, in my true heart I find she names my very deed of love, only she comes too short. So she says that she loves him more than air, breath, speech, eyesight, more than that. So obviously he's happy, and the younger one, she's unable to say anything, and obviously he just marries him off to the king of France, that too in a dowerless state, without giving him any dowry, and sends him off to France. So she is banished. Okay. Now this is the story. Now there are three women in King Lear, that is Goneril, Regan and Cordelia. Now they are all daughters of King Lear. Now Cordelia, when we talk about her, she is the most marginalized heroine of any of the Shakespeare's play. Now after the first act, she appears directly in the fourth act, so she just disappears, and she is indirectly the cause of destruction. I mean, has she said something that she loved her father? Maybe he would have given her the 1/3 part of the kingdom. She would have stayed there. She would have looked after her father. She would have taken care of him, and the action would have been something else. There wouldn't have been a tragic ending, but then that was not to be. So she is indirectly the cause of destruction because she doesn't speak, because she feels and in a way she is true. Like when the king asks her to praise him, she says that she feels that love cannot be expressed by words, and she feels that love can only be experienced. And if, she feels that if his father cannot experience his love, that if he cannot experience how much she loves him, then there is she has no right to stay there, and that is why she remains quiet and she is banished, right? And her absence in the play is so wrong that the viewers actually they forget that she exists, and then she reappears at the end, and again she appears for such a short time, because just after one or two scenes she is executed by the order of her cruel sisters. And then again we start thinking that why is she there, Cordelia? Like after the first act, directly in the fourth act, then again she is killed. But then maybe uh, uh, to tell King Lear that how wrong he was. That was the reason that Cordelia was brought at the end and then eliminated also, so that Lear knows that that brings about Lear's total downfall and to confound the tragedy. Okay, that is why she was, again we can say here that she was used. She was an object, right? And then we come to the two most abhorrent, more subversive characters in any of the Shakespearean play or in any other plays. We can say Regan and Goneril. Now they are again the two bad daughters, we can say, right? Now Goneril is married to Albany, who's a good person, and Regan, she's married to Cornwall, who again reflects her own self. Now they are both hypocrite, cunning, and false. They harbor no love for their father. They they show that they do not deserve even the land which he has bequeathed upon them as his heirs. Now, they both are equally devious, cruel, and ungenerous, right? Like, maybe we can say here that we know that King Lear, he has acted in a very cruel manner by banishing his good daughter, right? So maybe Shakespeare wanted to create characters who is way more devious or cruel than King Lear, so that he could actually justify or show some sympathy, create some sympathy towards King Lear, that he produced these two devious and cruel characters, that is Goneril and uh, Regan, right? Like these two sisters, we find that they are morally corrupt and they are loyal to no one, right? Morally corrupt in the sense they are married to their respective husbands, but still they love Edmund, who is a bastard son of Gloucester. So they love him and they want to get married to him. They want to have a relationship with him. So they are not loyal towards their husband, and they are not even loyal to each other, because both of them feel when actually Regan's husband Cornwall, he dies, and Goneril is so upset that now Regan is free to marry Edmund, that she actually kills Regan. because she doesn't want that Regan should marry Edmund, because she herself is in love with Edmund. So she kills Regan, and then ultimately kills herself also. And it's the only uh, Albany, who is the husband of Goneril, like on the death of both the sisters, he utters these words. Like he says that this judgment of heavens that make us tremble touches us not with pity. So again, when they both die, nobody is crying or nobody is sad. But then we know that along with them, it's Cordelia also who dies, it's King Lear also who die. So nobody feels pity for them, but then obviously we feel sorry for the king, and to some extent, but then for Cordelia, we feel sorry. Okay, now we move on to the next, that is the last play into consideration, that is Macbeth. Now, Macbeth dramatizes the damaging physical and psychological effects of political ambition on those who seek power for its own sake. Now, here it's the story of Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, who are very ambitious. Who Macbeth wants to become the king, and for that he kills the king, the present king of Scotland. And here we find that a brave Scottish general named Macbeth receives a prophecy from the trio of witches. Now, the four characters, women characters, and all the four of them are bad. Now, in the previous plays, at least we found that some of the women characters are good, some of them are bad. Okay, but here we find that all the four women characters, they are bad characters, cruel characters, right? Those women characters, they are Lady Macbeth and the three witches. Right, now when we talk about Lady Macbeth, again she has been marginalized in the sense that she has given no entity of her own. Means name is, even her name has not been mentioned in the play. In the entire play, she has been called Lady Macbeth. Right, we do not even know her first name. And then she is presented as being more ambitious than Macbeth. Her ambition surpasses the limits of human ethics, and that is true. She is the most cruel character. Like apart from Macbeth, Regan and Goneril, she is the one whom we actually don't want to believe that if she's a woman actually. She's unable to take action herself, and likely because of the social constraints. Like she wants the king to be killed, Duncan. She calls him at home, she invites him, and then she instigates her husband to kill him, because she could have killed herself, but then according to her, he resembled her father. So there's some compassion that has been shown in Lady Macbeth, which has been absent in Regan and Goneril. Because Regan and Goneril, when we actually talk about them, there's one scene when they are taking out the eyes of Goneril. They want to Gloucester. They want to punish Gloucester, and they want to punish him by taking out his eyes. And when one of his eyes is taken out, Regan, she encourages her husband to take the other eye also. So they are cruel to that extent. But here we find that Lady Macbeth, she is unable to do that deed of murder. So she instigates her husband. Right, and again, her speeches. I'll just go through one or two of her speeches, and in which we find that how she craves the spirit to fill her with direst cruelty from head to toe. Like she is, in the sense, when her husband, he feels that he cannot kill uh, uh, the king, and he comes back saying that no, I cannot kill the king. So how she instigates him, she challenges him, And she says, what beast was it then that made you break this enterprise to me? Like, she's asking him that how come you're coming and telling me that you can't do it, you can't kill the king, you can't kill Duncan. She says, when you durst do it, then you were a man. So she challenges his manliness. She says, and to be more than what you were, you would be so much more the men. So if you commit this deed, if you commit this crime, if you kill the king, only then will you be called a man. Nor time nor place did then adhere, and yet you would make both. They have made themselves, and that their fitness now does unmake you. I have given suck and no. Now these are the like you cannot actually imagine how cruel a woman can be. She says that I have given suck and know how tender it's to love the babe that milks me. I would, while it was smiling at my face, have plucked my nipple from his boneless gums and dashed the brains out, had I so sown as you have done this. So she says that when the baby's feet, if I had a child, she's a childless woman, barren woman, because I don't think a woman like this can ever be made mothers. So that is what she says, that if I ever had a child and it was feeding, I was breastfeeding him, and I would have just thrown him and crushed him to death. So she is so cruel, right? So these are her speeches. So she craves the spirit to fill her with direst cruelty from head to toe. And she asks the murdering ministers, then the invisible spirits of hell, to fill her womanly breast with gall and to strip her of any humanly feeling remorse and sympathy. So we can actually say is that she defies and define that what it actually is to be the female villain, particularly in the Shakespearean time. And the last but not the least are the three witches. Now, these three witches are exaggerated and distorted form of women, and they have been turned into monsters with special supernatural powers. So they are women, but then they have got beards. So Banco is actually confused whether it's women, their dressing up and everything is like women, but then those beards uh, make him confused whether they are men, but then again they are women, right? And they have got they have got special supernatural powers. Now these are the only women, apart from, as I've told you, from Desdemona. So these are the only women who appear outside the enclosed walls of their homes, and these are the like these three witches, and that is why it makes them unnatural and unwomanly, because they have crossed their boundaries, we can say. Now the three witches annihilates Macbeth's will, leading him into a moral crisis before yielding to a temptation that he knows is morally wicked. So it is they who sow the beat, we can say the seed, that he will be the future king, right? But then here I would like to add one thing. Now again, they predict that he will be the king, right? But then never do they tell him that how he will become the king. It is his own decision to kill Duncan and become the king. And after killing Duncan, he is actually as if he is now as if there's no foundation actually. Like he's free now that he could kill. Now even Lady Macbeth, we find that after the deed was done, she becomes insane, and after she again because she sees blood in in her hand, and she commits suicide. She kills herself. Okay? In this insanity, she kills herself. So again, there was that remorse in her, like, but then that sense of remorse is to be found. That motherly passion, although it's absent, but then she feels guilty and she kills herself. And these three witches again, they are witches, as the name suggests. Obviously, they'll not feel sorry for anything that they have done. But then in the play, we find that women, both natural and supernatural, they are portrayed in here as monsters, irrational creatures, and embodiments of evil. So this is the only play, as I told you in the beginning, that which has all the characters who are like cruel characters, who are ambitious, who actually surpass the limits of human ethics, who are evil, right? So with that, we come to the end of it. Now in the conclusion, I would conclude by saying that in his attempt to create the blameless protagonist, Shakespeare marginalizes, subordinates, objectifies, exploits, and distorts various strong female characters in his tragedies, just because he wanted to prove that men were superior to women. That is why he has used all these tools. He has marginalized them, he has subordinated them, he has objectified them, he exploits them, and he even distorts them, as we find in Goneril, Regan, and Lady Macbeth and the Three Witches. And obviously, these plays present women as lesser and inferior to men, as they don't occupy equal positions with men in society, socially, politically, and economically. I mean, Cordelia, we find that she has a brother, but then obviously they are both treated differently. Her brother is treated superior. He can even command her, and he can ask her, make her do whatever he asks for, right? And if at all the women is happen to occupy such position, it implies disaster. So Lady Macbeth, she becomes the queen, and when she becomes a queen, obviously it's a disaster, it's a downfall for herself also, and for Macbeth also. And then these women are portrayed as creatures of passion and irrational. So they are like passionate, they are irrational, they don't know the difference between the right and the wrong. This is how they are portrayed. The women are not capable to handle the serious issues and challenges, and because of this lack, they cannot be true leaders. So in none of the tragedies, we find the women leading to some extent. In Macbeth, we find that Lady Macbeth leads Macbeth, but then once after killing Duncan, he doesn't now has any need of Lady Macbeth. He just ignores her. He doesn't even go back to her. And maybe that is the reason that she finally becomes insane, and that remorse obviously is there, and she dies. And then the ample there is so from these plays we find that there is ample textual evidence that women are presented as immoral and negative stereotypes. But then I do not want to end with a negative note. So here we can also say, like, I want to say that Shakespeare, although these tragedies show that Shakespeare is sexist and misogynistic, but then we have other plays also, right? Like Twelfth Night, Much Ado About Nothing, Merchant of Venus, As You Like It, and many more, which clear the assumption that Shakespeare had low opinion about women. Now, these works posits that Shakespeare showed the mistreatment of women in his plays to make the audience recognize it, not agree with it. So he doesn't want to show that he doesn't want to prove that this is how the women should be treated, or that he had low opinion about women, right? Like, he doesn't agree with it. He's just actually, we know that literature is the reflection of life, so he just wants to reflect life, right? Because that is what he had seen around him at that point of time. Now Shakespeare reflects at times and supports the stereotypes of women. So he does that because obviously he was the man, and that belonging to those times. Right, and their various roles and responsibilities in societies, but he's also a playwright who questions, challenges, and modifies their representation. So he does that also. He questions, he challenges, and he modifies their representation, which we can see in the comedies which he has written. So my parting note would be that there are some adaptations of Shakespeare's plays, right, which have like Vishal Bhardwaj has actually made movies based on these plays. Now for Hamlet he has made Haidar, for Othello he has made Omkara. It's a trilogy, we can say, of Vishal Bhardwaj. From Macbeth he has made Makbul. King Lear has not been made into a Hindi movie, but then there's a Telugu movie called Gunasundari Katha. So uh, like you can actually, if you're not reading, you can actually go and watch these movies, although these are adaptations. And everything, like in a modern context he has made these movies, and in a modern context. But then again, at least you know the storylines, and you know that how human nature at that point of time was, how it was, and it still is the same. So with this, we come to the end of this session.
Thank you, madam.
Right.
Thank you very much. You have stopped your screen sharing, madam?
Yes, I have done
Okay, fine. So thank you very much, madam, for such a wonderful presentation. You have very meticulously explored the major women characters from Shakespeare's tragedy, like Ophelia, Gertrude, Desdemona, Amelia, Goneril, Regan, Cordelia, Lady Macbeth, who are ambitious, irrational, marginalized, and who are young and involved in romantic plots that revolve around choosing a husband and also the conflict between the father and daughter. Your well read presentation promoted critical thinking, attention grabbing, and made our participants visualize Shakespeare's woman's character in a very diverse way. The elegance with which you guided our students, participants, truly shows your expertise in Shakespearean study. Thank you once again, madam. Dear participants, now the session is open for sharing the questions. So I would like to read the questions, ma'am, which are being posted in the chat box. There is a question from Yogita Bante. She asks, what makes the Shakespearean heroine different from the heroine portrayed by other dramatists?
The difference, I would like, what I have seen or I have realized is that I told during my session also, that Shakespeare has considered the extremities, right? Either he has portrayed the women as to be very good or to be very bad. So he, like, there are no mediocre heroines that we find in Shakespeare, whereas in other writers we find that there is this proper admixture of goodness and badness in the characters which are portrayed. So what I feel is the extremities of the portrayal of the women characters make Shakespeare different from other writers.
Thank you, ma'am. There's another question from Rupali Bhave from LAD College. She asks, how does Ophelia treat Hamlet in his madness?
Ophelia actually tries to approach him again and again, but then every time she approaches him, she is ignored. Okay, she is actually, we can say that she is pushed back. So she starts avoiding him because she cannot tolerate the treatment that Hamlet gives her, even when he's feigning madness. So obviously, actually, Hamlet is not mad. We know that he is just pretending to be mad. So Ophelia cannot bear the treatment that she is getting from him. So she just avoids him. Okay, and obviously she commits suicide. She ends her life. She gives away her life.
Thank you, madam. There is another question from Ravi Verma Joshi. He asked, please throw some light on Shakespeare's Cleopatra through feminist lenses.
Sir, actually, I haven't read Cleopatra. I confined myself. Actually, when I was in college, I had gone through Cleopatra, but not recently. So I don't think even if I say anything, I'll be able to justify my answer. So maybe after reading, I'll just post. I can't answer because I
Thank you,
haven't
madam.
read Cleopatra.
Yeah. Thank you, madam. The questions are here ended. And I would like to mention a beautiful comment coming from Hema Purkar. She praises, you have summed up the portrayal of female characters so well, Deepthi madam. Your talk paints a wonderful, though sad, picture of objectification of the woman in prevailing society. So she loved it. Thank you very much, madam.
Thank you,
So
Hema.
here,
Thank you so much.
yeah. So here we end up with the question answer session.
Yes,
Uh,
Meenakshi, please, I
yes.
can see more questions and more inputs from Bante, Yogita Bante.
Yeah. Actually, she has commented some. There are some comments from Yogita
No,
Bante.
most of these are questions. She said, of all Shakespearean heroines, who is the most immortal and who is the most immoral?
Oh, yeah. It probably it may be skipped. Yeah.
I didn't
The
get
one,
it because ma'am's voice is not coming.
Yeah,
Would
Deepthi
you
madam.
repeat it? Huh.
Yeah. I will. Yeah, Jyoti madam, please, you can go through it. Yeah.
of all the Shakespearean heroines, who is the most immortal and who is the most immoral? She asked.
Okay, immortal and immoral. Actually, I feel that both of them are the same. It's Lady Macbeth. She is the most immoral also, and she is the most immortal also. Like the qualities, good or bad, whatever she possesses, that makes her immoral. That is what I said, that she defies and defines the villain of the Shakespearean time. So it's one and the same person. Lady Macbeth, she is most immoral and she is immortal. According to me, the views can change, right?
Yeah. So excellent. And she has also added most of the Shakespearean plays. For instance, The Merchant of Venice, Macbeth, King Lear, Othello, they're all titled in the name of the male protagonists,
Yes.
not female protagonists. Then, is it the consequence of the patriarchal society? She asked.
Yes, it is. I actually wanted to mention it. Maybe I skipped this thing. I wanted to comment on this, that all these four major tragedies, they are named on the heroes, no heroines. Although when Romeo and Juliet, maybe he wanted to give equal importance to both of them, so he named it Romeo and Juliet, or even Antony and Cleopatra. But here, he that patriarchal society he belonged to, or he wanted to give more importance only to the heroes, right? Although most of them possessed unheroic qualities, but still he wanted to give the importance, like stress on their existence, and maybe he has the reason that he has named them uh, by their names only and not added the heroine's name, right? The female protagonist's name.
Yes,
You're right.
your answer is appropriate. One appreciation from Hema Purkar I can see on YouTube. You have summed up the portrayal of the female characters so well, Dipti madam. Your talk paints a wonderful, though sad, picture of the objectification of women in the prevailing society. So loved it. And Paramita madam has one question for you. Paramita Mukherjee Oza, right from Delhi. Do you feel Shakespearean heroines were victims of circumstances or of their own doing? Yeah, over to you.
Actually, both. Most of the time, it's the circumstances which led them to behave in that particular manner in which they behaved and which led to their downfall. And other times, it was like, again, their own doing, we can say, that had they behaved differently, had we can say Ophelia tried to convince Othello, or not given up so easily, maybe she would have survived. So it's a admixture of both the things. Like in some cases it's the circumstances, and in some cases it's their own doing. So we cannot say that it's either of them. It's both.
Thank you very much, madam. So hereby,
Meenakshi, if these people want to add on to or put input, those who have asked questions, they can also unmute and
video. Yeah,
directly
yeah.
talk to the
So,
presenter.
yeah, tomorrow we will keep the option open for the participants in this way, madam. Yeah.
It is not open for the participants. They
Yeah,
cannot.
it is open, but from tomorrow. Usha, madam, your opinion?
That makes the things
Yeah,
easier for everyone.
if they have questions and they want to speak, they can
Parumita
go ahead.
madam
No problem.
can
No
unmute
problem.
and put her idea whether she is satisfied or not.
Yeah, I would like to know the feedback actually. If
Yeah.
anybody wants to put in some.
Paramita, madam, your inputs?
Many of them are not comfortable with it, so it's okay.
Okay, doesn't matter. Okay.
Okay. So,
Yeah,
Good evening.
Pati madam is there. She could ask her.
Okay, she has some question. Okay. Yeah.
This is Dr. Indrani from Mysore, Karnataka.
Okay.
The deliberation was excellent, ma'am. I was there throughout the session. Wonderful deliberation it was. So, ma'am, do you really consider that the lost identity of women in Shakespeare's dramas?
Ma'am, your voice is not clear. Like I'm not getting your question. Your
Okay,
voice
I
is not
just
clear.
yeah,
It's not coming clearly to me.
I wanted to ask you: do you feel that the women characters portrayed by Shakespeare
Usha, madam,
have
mute
lost
yourself.
their identity?
Meenakshi, ma'am, will you please write it and post it so that I get the question? Your voice, or if anybody could have heard it, please, will you convey it to me? Like I'm not getting the question. Her voice is not reaching me.
Let her read once again. Now the options are
Ma'am,
closed.
I think I heard the question.
Right.
She's wanting to ask: have women characters lost their, identity through these plays? I think this is the way she was asking.
Yes, of course. Yes. Like, obviously, they have lost their identity because of being objectified, because they are being objectified, marginalized. Like, all the treatment that they got in Shakespeare's play, obviously, their identity was not, like, by the end of the play, they had already lost their identity. Yes, I believe that.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Here, I'd like to add, if I am audible clearly, because you see, Shakespeare has different treatment for the heroines or the female characters of his tragedies and female characters of his comedies. In comedy, the female characters are quite domineering and they are quite confident, whereas in most of the tragedies, the female characters are at receiving ends. They are the victims of circumstances. That is
Yes.
my observation. And as far as Cleopatra, sir has asked, it is actually the Roman history comes into Roman history, and it is something he really highlighted to have Cleopatra as a domineering lady, but with equal on parlance with the male characters. So she is a different. She stands totally in a different pedestal when we talk about all the female characters of Shakespeare. Yeah.
Madam, there is a question put on by Dr. Meenakshi Kulkarni, madam. She asks, Shakespeare depicted women as underrated heroines. Madam, do you think that he had a misogynistic approach towards women? Your perspective needed, ma'am.
Yes, of course, he had that misogynistic, especially when especially when he was writing tragedies. While he was writing comedies, I don't think that will agree with this view, because then he has highlighted the qualities, all the goodness of the women he has brought forward. But while he, we don't know that at in what state of mind Shakespeare was while he was writing all these four tragedies, especially these four tragedies, right? Because in all these four tragedies, he has acted in a very misogynistic manner. Like, he has portrayed women from a male point of view, from a patriarchal, like how in a patriarchal society they'll be treated. Like this is what I feel. Like especially as far as this four tragedies are concerned, he had that misogynistic point of view while he was writing about these heroines, portraying these heroines.
Actually, ma'am, this question has been posted by Atul Durge. I'm sorry, it's not Dr. Meenakshi Kulkarni, ma'am. Okay. So I think the questions are ended here. Jyoti, madam, any questions? No, no?
I hope
Okay.
let me check in. Yes, no questions.
Yeah,
And
no questions.
Parumita madam could not join because there are heavy rains
Uh-huh.
in Delhi, and they're about to have heavy rains in Nagpur as well. So let's hope, finger crossed that our connectivity goes on. Okay.
Okay. So, yeah. So, thank you all the distinguished participants for your scholarly questions in the interactive discussions. William Faulkner quotes, "Gratitude is heart's memory," unquote. I deem it a great honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks on this memorable occasion. I extend my heartfelt thanks to our mentor, respected Dr. Pranoti Chakravarti Madam and Dr. Ghanshyam Sir for organizing the wonderful Shakespearean Symposium in the way of Shakespearean Certificate course. I take this prestigious opportunity to express my deep sense of gratitude to today's resource person, Dr. Deepti Jain Thakre Madam, for her valuable discourse for enlightening our zealous participants. I extend my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Usha Sakure Madam and Dr. Jyoti Patil Madam and all the members of Shakespearean Society for being there as a robust pillar behind this certificate course. I would fail in my duties if I don't express my sincere thanks to our enthusiastic participants for their active participation in huge numbers. Having an optimistic attitude and believing that better things are ahead to enjoy learning, with this hope, tomorrow we would bring up with a creative insight on a very exclusive topic, historical plays of Shakespeare with reference to Henry IV and Henry V by our eminent resource person, Dr. Sudesh Bhaute Sir, Head Department of English, PWS College, Nagpur. With the consent of Chair and Organizing Committee, I hereby declare the end of today's program. Stay home and stay safe. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.